I'm getting a little nervous because it looks tiny. Yay! Why am I gonna cry?
I'm Nora, and this is also known as Nora Knits.
Hello there, I'm Nora, and you're watching, also known as Nora Knits. Thanks so much for coming to hang out with me for yet another podcast episode today. I feel like I tell you all the time, I feel like sometimes I just sit down and even though it's literally been a week since I sat here and filmed, I feel like it's been 2 months and I have no idea what I'm doing. So I am though excited because I've made some really great progress on a couple of my whips today. And so I'm really eager to chat about all of that with you. I should mention quickly what I'm wearing, and that is my Like pullover, Like pullover by Sorry Nordland. This was a test knit that I had done for her last year. I knit this using they were 2 different cone yarns that I had purchased at Webb's. One is 100% wool. The other one is an alpaca silk lace weight yarn that I held double for the main color. And then the little chevron stripes that you could probably barely see were done in a thrifted boucle yarn that I have. I love this sweater. It actually had been sitting at the bottom of my sweater pile, and so I kind of forgot about it until a couple days ago. I saw it and I was like, oh shoot, I should try to wear that before this season's over because I really do love the fit of this one. It just it's nice. I like the sleeves on it, how they do that. I like that. So yeah, that's what I'm wearing. So I think we should just go ahead and dive on in. So in last week's podcast, I had 3 whips to update you on. However, today I'm only going to be talking about 2 of them. The one that I'll be leaving out was the newest cast on, which was my Farnham tee by the Knit Pearl Girl. And I had cast that on because I didn't have any other mindless knitting at the time. However, in the past week, I've been focusing on my other whips, so I've not touched it once, which I knew when I cast it on that was going to be the case. So just so you know, no update on the Farnham today. I think we should start with the whip that's been on the needles the longest, and that would be my Folklore cardigan. This is the free pattern by Lion Brand of the Taylor Swift cardigan that I am actually knitting up for my little cousin, Miss Emma. And this project has been on my needles for 44 days today. And my goal is to gift it to her on Easter, which is now 3 days away. So I'm so sorry. This is not going to look like anything because of where I am at with the progress, but I will hold it up anyway. I think you can tell that we are officially all seamed up. All of my pieces are on here, and I have even finished knitting the hem of the cardigan, and I am currently all bunched up because I have my needles in for the button band. So let's chat about things for a second because this week was not a very easy week for knitting with me. When I left you last week, I was still working on the sleeves, which if you're not familiar with this pattern, all of the pieces, the back, the front panels, and the sleeves, they are all knit flat and then seamed together. You are supposed to start this pattern with the ribbing and then work bottom up. However, I really prefer doing an Italian bind off to an Italian cast on, or a tubular bind off to an Italian or a tubular cast on. So I decided to actually just start with a provisional cast on all of my pieces and then start directly with the cables, work my way bottom up. And now that everything is seamed together, I am going back and adding the ribbing. Part of why I wanted to do that too, and I'm now relieved to say that I was nervous that when I was seaming the pieces up, if I had a little jog in these black stripes that I completely actually forgot were part of the pattern by the time I went to go do them, I was nervous that where I was seaming things, you might see a little jog or the ends might just not meet up perfectly, and that would have bothered me. So I'm glad that I went with the provisional cast on. It was a little bit more tedious taking those stitches out of the crochet cast on. I followed a Stacey Perry Very Pink Knits tutorial where I did the crochet cast on and then cast on my knit stitches through the back loop of the crochet chain. And then to get the stitches back onto my needles, I was undoing the crochet chain, and that would leave a live stitch just floating in the air. So I had to kind of undo one and catch the stitch, undo one and catch the stitch. I don't know why I thought when I pulled the chain out, I don't know why I was thinking that the chain, I don't know. If you have a better suggestion for a provisional cast on, that was my first time doing it. And if there's a way to do a provisional cast on so that when you take out the actual scrap yarn and your live stitches are like sitting on the yarn, that seems like it would be a lot easier than what I had done. But either way, it wasn't too bad. And getting the hem around was the hardest part because it was the most stitches. So that was fine. But yeah, I'm really happy that I went and did that because after seaming any little gaps in my seam, I was able to just close up by knitting the ribbing together. So I think it looks really good there. Yes, we were knitting the sleeves flat last time and I was approaching the sleeve cap. And basically what wound up happening was I have been referencing a sweater of my cousin's, the measurements from that. It's her favorite oversized sweater. So I've been referencing those measurements to try and get this as close to that as possible. And so I read the instructions for the sleeve. You knit bottom up, and then at some point you have to start shaping the sleeve cap, which kind of, it looks like this. And I read, I just saw sleeve cap instructions in the pattern, and it said row 1, do this, blah, blah, blah. And then I saw it went from row 1 to row 11. Didn't look further than that. Just was like, okay, it's an 11 row sleeve cap. So I measured how many rows 11 or how many inches 11 rows made up, and I was basing all of my measurements off of that number. Got to the sleeve cap, did the 11 rows, thought I was done, was so excited. And then I realized that it said to repeat. It says on row 11, repeat until 20 stitches remain. And that's in little italics and parentheses underneath bold row 11. So the first time you knit row 11, you have 58 stitches. And I thought I was done. So I just did everything according to that. I wound up having to frog back an entire diamond repeat to get my sleeves to be the right length, then knit back using the sleeve cap shaping. It was basically a full day of work. When I've put myself on this deadline, no one else is making me reach a deadline. It's my own thing that I'm trying to do. So I just was so ticked off because my goal too was to get all of the pieces knit up so that they could block and dry over the weekend and I could just start with the finishes on Monday this past week and knit until Easter, hopefully get it done by then. So it wound up going into the weekend a little bit further. I was so annoyed with myself that I didn't catch that instruction, but it is what it is. I got it figured out. I was able to knit the whole sleeve cap and I got everything blocked. It was very late by the time I did all of that. And I don't even remember when that was now, but I got it all done. I got it blocking. I didn't really have enough pins to block all of the pieces that I was blocking. So I was mostly paying attention to the parts that actually would be more important for like the seaming. So actually making sure that the sleeve cap was kind of blocked out, and for picking up the button band, I wanted to make sure that that was all really nice and straight where it was supposed to be. So I didn't focus so much on actually stretching the sleeve of it. So right now I think that the sleeves are looking like so teeny tiny, but they really do need to block out quite a bit more. And my cousin is teeny tiny. Plus, like, this is scrunched up because I put it on the try-it-on tubing, but, like, it's fine. It's fine. It looks way smaller than it actually is. But yeah, so that was the next thing, was just when I left you last week, I had to finish up those sleeve cap. I did. Then I had to frog it, do that over. Got that done, got everything blocking. It took all, I think like 4.5 hours for me to seam everything together. I had already seamed the front and back, the shoulder seam together, blocked everything flat. The next thing that I had done was seam the sleeve into the shoulder so that I could have it flat while I was doing that. It went smoothly, everything did. I then went and seamed up the sides and then up the arms. And I think everything looks pretty good, as good as you could get for a seamed garment. And I wish I could try it on. It's just so tiny. But I think everything is going really well. My goal for this is so I got the hem done. I still have to add cuffs and, of course, the button band. So I actually was going to start by doing the cuffs, and that's why this one is on the try-it-on tubing, whereas this one is still on its provisional cast-on scrap string. And I got the stitches onto needles, but then realized that my shorties are not small enough for this circumference of sleeve. I just don't like doing magic loop, and I've been wanting a set of DPNs for a while, so I decided to just check Amazon. They had the Knit Picks wooden DPN set it was on sale. It was like $29, and it could be here today if I ordered it yesterday. So I decided to just go ahead and get that. I don't mind knitting with the DPNs. I've just only had the one set that I've had, and I figured if I was going to buy another size, honestly, the $30 was just going to make more sense than going and buying like a $10 single size. So that was what I decided to do, which means that today that I'm filming is Wednesday. Easter is on Sunday. I would like to at least get halfway through the button band today. Ideally, I'll finish it, but I have a little bit of a busy week this week, so I'm hoping to finish the button band today, but more realistically, get about halfway through that. Then tomorrow, Thursday, wrap up the button band if I have to, which leaves me Friday to do the cuffs. And then Saturday, I can weave in ends. I can give everything a final steam block. I'm not going to have time for this to wash and block again unless that schedule winds up getting done, tomorrow. Then maybe I could just do it a quick wash and really make sure I dry it well before I block it one more time. But otherwise, no, I think a steam block will be fine because this is the Lion Brand Wool Ease yarn, and that's an acrylic and wool blend. And I do feel like acrylics tend to respond better to a steam block sometimes. So I'm wondering if anything that just didn't totally open up in the soak that I gave it maybe would benefit more from a steam block instead. So that's what I'll do just to make sure that all of my hems and everything are looking good. And the only other thing I wanted to mention here today is that with the button band, I looked at a lot of photos of other people's folklore project, and not in all of them, but in some of them, I noticed that the back of the neck was kind of hanging down a little bit. And I also noticed in a lot of the pictures, the girls are very cool and like don't have the cardigan on their shoulders at all and are wearing it almost more like a little robe of sorts. And I'm assuming that's a fashion choice. However, I was wondering if it was because it wasn't totally staying on, like the button band or the back of the neck just wasn't high enough. So maybe it wasn't so comfortable to wear it on their shoulders. And based on those things that I saw, I just decided to add a couple of German short rows across the back panel in the button band. So I started with my picking up of the full button band. I knit my ribbing all the way around to one end. Then I knit the ribbing back to, if this was like the back of the garment, I knit that button band back all the way across to a shoulder seam, stopped, German short row, knit back to the other shoulder seam, stop, German short row, knit back to a few stitches before, stop, German short row, knit back to the same amount of stitches before the other German short row, stop, go back around, and then knit down, and then I'm going to knit the ribbing back the other way to, just boost up the back of the neck a tiny, tiny bit. I didn't want to do too much because I don't need like a 5-inch ribbing on the back of the button band, but I just wanted a little something to make sure that it was going to be comfortable and not drooping on the back of the neck. That drives me crazy. So yeah, I'm really happy with how this is looking. The black yarn is leaving little black fuzzes all over everything. But yeah, I'm getting a little nervous because it looks tiny, but my cousin's tiny, and I'm just used to seeing really big knits. I did measure before and after blocking, but I haven't measured since I actually seamed up the cardigan how my dimensions are doing compared to her favorite oversized sweater. So we shall see. This is going to be gone by the next time I film, so I'm hoping that either Saturday or Sunday morning before I leave for Easter, hopefully I could just sit down and show it to you guys really quick before it goes on its way. And yeah, I mean, I think something that you want to keep in mind if you're going to knit this Folklore cardigan is I have been knitting this in the smallest size, but even smaller than that still, because I did modify this by reducing some stitches to make it even tinier for my cousin. And still, with some pretty diligent knitting on this, it's taken 44 days. And I don't feel like I've had other projects really. I mean, I took a little bit of a hiatus from it, maybe for a week while I was doing the test knit for Lily Kate France. But other than that, this really has been my highest priority knit. And so I just think it's a time investment. I mean, look, it's all over cables. It's done in the pieces. It's a lot of referencing the pattern. And in the end, you get a gorgeous product. But just keep that in mind if you're going to knit the Folklore cardigan. So that's where we're at on that. Please wish me luck and hope that by the time you're watching this, this is done. I did actually also this week pop into Michael's and I just grabbed some super simple buttons for the Folklore cardigan. I really like to have my buttons when I'm mapping out the button band. I don't know why, that makes me feel a little bit better rather than retroactively trying to find buttons that fit through the buttonholes or like on the button band. If I had to make adjustments, I'd rather just pick out my buttons first. So typically, I don't like a lot of contrast with buttons. However, because the cardigan has the sort of black stripes at the bottom, I'm so sorry, this is very different. I couldn't find a cord long enough or a cable long enough for my needles to actually do the button band without it being all bunchy. Maybe this is a better way to hold it up. But most of the photos, they have black buttons. And I was able to find these ones at Michael's that are actually almost more of just like a very dark gray. and they have a little bit of, they're actually just maybe not totally opaque. So I think that they look a little less like snowman buttons, which is always my fear with a cardigan. And I think that they'll help tie in the black stripes on here. The pattern calls for 3 buttons. These come in packs of 3. I think it was like $1 and maybe 10 cents or something. But I just decided to pick up, they only had 2 of them, so I just picked up the 2 packs in case I wanted to add a 4th button. And I figure I can gauge that as I get to the actual row where I'm starting to make the buttonholes on this one, so I can make sure that the button band's going to be wide enough. But yeah, I picked those up just the other day, and I think that they look really nice for dollar buttons, so I'm happy with those. Now, like I said, it was not my week for knitting, but it was a good week of making sure everything was doing what I wanted it to be doing. So we did the frogging on the sleeves of the Folklore, and I also spent some time frogging the sleeves on my sand cardigan by Maria Isaeva of Ulan Knitwear. This is the sort of duster length cardigan that I'm knitting using Nora Madara in the colorway Sake. And I had made some discoveries last week and made some plans for how I was going to adjust the sleeves on this to really be my ideal fit. And so since we spoke last, I have gone ahead and made those changes. Oh my gosh, sorry. This is like so tangled up in here. I think it needs a bigger home now. So here we have it. It does not look like much in its current state. The fabric on the body that you're seeing has been blocked, but look how drapey it is. I'm really glad that I decided to knit this at the more dense gauge that I did. And I said last week I wanted to be right back where I was, where I had sort of half of the sleeves done. The sleeves in the pattern have basically 2 different sections of the rate of decreases. And I had knit like the first section on both of them last week, frogged that, and so I have completed that same amount of decreases on the one sleeve, and then the other one, I think I'm just shy a few decreases still. But yes, okay, when I was talking about all of the measurements last week, I realized when I was editing that I had done all of that sort of math of how I was going to adjust the numbers for my sleeve pickups and everything I had already done all that math prior to sitting down to podcast. And then when I sat down and was like trying to regurgitate the numbers that we had already come up with, something wasn't making sense. And it was because I was continuously referencing like the circumference instead of the flat lay or vice versa. So I think you guys knew what I meant. I tried to put the text on the screen, but I was like, what am I saying right now? But yes, I did what I said I was going to do. I wound up, basically, if you missed last week, I've been knitting this cardigan in the size 5, and I felt like the sleeves were just huge, like standing off of my arm, huge. And I decided to rip back and pick up at the rate or pick up the amount of stitches for a smaller size. So first things first, I did go ahead and just rip out, frog back, even though the body that's under the sleeve here was knit after the sleeve. And so I have those few stitches that were hanging on to the sleeve. Those are just on some cords right now. And I'll go back and seam those together. But that worked out just fine. So I didn't have to undo my 2 inches of knitting that I just didn't want to have to rip out if I didn't have to. So I'm glad that I did that. And then I wound up picking up for actually the smallest size in the pattern. I confirmed my numbers again, and that was the number that made the most sense for the size sleeve that I wanted. I have yet to try this on again, so I figured we could just do that here and now and make sure we're on track. let me put some little stitch stoppers onto this sleeve. And again, I'm wearing something that's not super conducive to trying this on, but we'll see how it looks anyway. Now we're talking. I'm so excited, you guys. All of that paid off. Keep in mind, I'm still wearing a full oversized sweater underneath this. So I didn't make the sleeves by any means like tight. That was never what I wanted. I wanted oversized sleeves, just like the pattern suggests. But literally last week when I had the sleeves on, they were so big that they were standing up off of my arm. This is unblocked. This is blocked. I'm wearing an oversized sweater underneath, and I think this is the absolute perfect sleeve size. Yay! Oh my God, I'm getting emotional. This was one of those things that things weren't going right. I knew I had to pump the brakes. I felt a little wild considering casting on or picking up the amount of stitches for the size 1 when I'm knitting the size 5, but I put so much thought and so much math into that whole thing, and I referenced another sweater, and I did all of these things that felt like the right things to do, but honestly, I was kind of afraid I was going to try this on right now and it wasn't going to fit right, but this is exactly the fit that I wanted. When it's blocked, it's going to be perfect. I could not even... Why am I gonna cry? If you follow me on Instagram, we've been having these conversations about whether or not you should modify patterns and at what level of knitting are you qualified to do that. And I have been nothing but honest on this channel about the fact that I have been knitting for just over a year. I am learning as I go. I'm learning in the spotlight of this channel. And the whole point of me doing that is to encourage other knitters to try new things and to fail and to try again and to experiment and go outside of your comfort zone. And sometimes the best things come from that. And the community that we have that encourages that and is embracing that and is going and doing those things too, that's the community that I was hoping to find through this channel. And I feel like this is a win for me, but it's also a win for us adventurous knitters. To those of us, when people say that you're knitting out of your league, you're not. It's yarn, it's stitches. You can frog it back and you can make the perfect size sleeve and make a garment that you love that fits your body the way that you want it to. And if it doesn't turn out right, you could just frog back and do it again. You could start from scratch and knit a different pattern. You could do whatever you want because it's your craft. But when you win, after you've made those little changes, I promise you, those are going to be the garments that you're the most proud of. Because this little sleeve, I am freaking proud of. I saw something that wasn't working for me. I trusted my gut. I followed the path, went down the rabbit hole, did the math, did the calculations, and I knit a sleeve that's perfect. For me, for this cardigan, for this yarn. And I'm very proud of myself, and I'm grateful to those of you who have been cheering me on along the way, because it's not easy to frog back and try again and to say, oh, I failed this time. It's not easy to do for yourself, but let alone in front of other people. But I think it's really important to see someone make a mistake and fix it, or make a mistake and just own it. The imperfections are what make something so perfectly handmade. Did you catch the cable that was twisting the wrong way in one section on the Folklore? Probably not, but I left it there because if my cousin doesn't believe I made her that sweater, I'm going to show her that little cable that's twisting the wrong way and say, that's how you know I made it. Anyway, that was a tangent. I'm excited. I'm really proud of this. I feel like I earned these sleeves, and I'm just excited that that hurdle is behind us and that we figured it out. So very cool. I think this is shaping up to exactly what I want it to be. I'm going to continue to just finish up the decreases on this sleeve. I had done all of them on this sleeve before, and as I did my decreases, I popped in a stitch marker. And then as I've been knitting this sleeve, I've been grabbing the stitch markers from here and popping them on these decreases so that even if I messed up along the way, at least the two match. And that's how I keep track of my decreases. So I can see by looking at this one, I have 2 sets of decreases still to do on this sleeve. And then I'm going to go back to knitting the body for a bit until I'm in the mood to knit the sleeves again. I'm going to do a little back and forth so that I can keep comparing the lengths of everything and make sure everything's fitting just right. But I'm so excited about this one. This is a big win for us. Yay! And not that I'd ever wear it over another sweater, but it's cool to know that I could if I was really that chilly. Huh. So cool. It's hot though. So super exciting for the sand cardigan here. You can see, this is actually kind of cool because you could see just how dense the fabric is when it was first knit up. And I am knitting this on 4.5 millimeter US 7 needles. And yes, the fabric in the sleeve is quite dense and stiff, but it blocks out like a dream. Like, look at that. Oof. Versus this stiff thing. So this yarn is pretty fun to work with. Overall, very excited about it. I wound up frogging the sleeves, and I've just put that yarn aside for right now and just went back in with some fresh yarn. I'll either soak that yarn, or honestly, it's in its cake now, so it's probably gonna stretch out a little bit. So hopefully by the time I'm kneading it, I'll probably just put it closer to the bottom of this cardigan and knit with it then. But yeah, very exciting stuff over here. So that is my sand cardigan by Maria Iseva of Woolen Knitwear. And did I say that was on the needles for 38 days? 38 days. So that's all of the knitting that I got done over the last week, which doesn't verbalize into a lot of work, but it was a lot of work. It was a lot of thinking and seaming and frogging and reknitting and all of that. So I feel I'm sure that this episode is going to be a bit shorter than the recent ones, but I also am excited for the things that we have on the horizon. I did want to say just a big thank you so much for all of the birthday wishes. You guys really totally made my weekend, and you may have noticed that I was laying low all weekend, so I wasn't super active on here or on Instagram, but I did spend my birthday going thrifting, and I came home empty-handed. Then we wound up doing a little overnight stay up in a tiny cabin in New Hampshire. And along the way, we were able to pop into a yarn shop called the Elegant U in Concord, New Hampshire. And there I met Maria and Karen, and we had a really nice conversation. I also picked up some wool wash while I was there because I ran out of mine. I don't have that with me, but that was an acquisition that I had made. And it also made me wonder, I just got a little one, but it's the Eucalyptus brand, right? Eucalyptus, I think is the name of the brand, in eucalyptus. I'd love to know what your favorite wool wash is. I haven't really experimented with different kinds, so I'm curious to know if you have a favorite, what is it? Because that's one of those things that I'm like, I don't know, it's always just been an afterthought. So I'd love to know if you have a favorite wool wash, definitely let me know what it is. But yes, I was able to pop in there. Great little yarn shop, lots of options, and especially with different accessories and needles, a nice place to poke around. So stopped there. But yeah, because we were just doing birthday stuff all weekend, I really didn't do a lot of knitting over the weekend. I didn't knit like at all while we were in New Hampshire, but that was honestly great. OC came with us. We had a really nice time and poked around. I don't usually do too many life updates, but I thought I would just let you know what I was up to over my birthday weekend because it was pretty fun and exciting. And I guess this also does lead me into, I didn't come home with any yarn, and that is partially because we're doing a knit along, friends. Here we go. It is officially Stash Bust Spring, and this is an idea that I came up with and mentioned in my spring knitting plans video, which, by the way, you guys, you welcomed that video so warmly, so thank you so much. But basically, I have decided for the spring, I am not purchasing any new yarn, and I'm trying to knit through my stash. So that is going to be the theme. This is going to run until June 21st. And there are a couple of rules. First of all, you can purchase yarn if you need to supplement yarn in your stash in order to complete a project. That's going to be okay. And I have a rule that's specific to me. Feel free to use this or not, but if there is an absolutely necessary thrifted sweater's quantity of yarn, it's coming home with me because you just can't pass up a good find like that. So those things are okay. The idea really is just to knit through some stash, do some spring cleaning, get some yarn out. And I think even more so that at the end of the season, we can all kind of look and see what didn't come out of the yarn stash during Stash Bust Spring. And therefore, maybe it's time to just do a bit of a destash and get some things out that we just know we aren't going to use, we're not excited about anymore. But I think that taking the time to really push your creativity by setting up some parameters, sometimes that's the best way to come up with really fun combinations, like the yarn that I'm using for my Farnham tee. Just, looking at what you have and trying to make it work for things that you're interested in. So I'm going to put together some prizes, but basically, if you want to participate, you just have to knit on some stash busting projects with me. To enter the giveaway portion of the knit along, just make sure that on Instagram you use the hashtag of Stash Bust Spring, and you're also going to want to tag me in that at aka Nora Knits. And yeah, let us know what you're making. I don't think it's necessary to have a finished object at the end, but just follow those rules, obviously, on your own discretion. And yeah, let's all do a little stash busting together and see what we can come up with. And then, yeah, like I said, at the end of the season, we can evaluate and see if we want to keep going into the summer or what's up with that. But for now, from starting now until June 21st, it's going to be Stash Bust Spring. I am going to be mostly doing this on Instagram. However, I'm thinking maybe towards the end of this giveaway, if you don't have Instagram, perhaps in the sort of last video before it, I'll just have you use that hashtag stash bust spring in the comment section and let me know what you made with your stash busting. And maybe I can come up with some prizes to do a couple of different giveaways, one through YouTube, one through Instagram. So we'll get to that when we get there, but I'm very excited. This is my first like real knit along. So yeah, I hope you guys are excited for that. Otherwise, I think that was all I really wanted to get out of the way today. Like I said, a short one, and next week it's going to feel like a clean slate because Folklore will be gone. There will be a new whip on the needles. So the Farnham and the Sand cardigan are going to be getting a lot more attention, and hopefully we can get started on some more spring knits soon. So that's all I got for you today, guys. If you enjoyed this video and knitting content in general, I definitely would love for you to come hang out with us more often. I post a weekly podcast every Saturday morning at 9:30 a.m. If you enjoyed this video, I would definitely appreciate it if you would go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Please consider subscribing and ring the bell so that you're always notified when I put up those extra little videos in between. And other than that, you guys, big ol' thanks for watching. I will catch you on the next one. All right.